Hi, and welcome to English-Fabule. Are you learning English? Great. Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started.
Imagine a battleground, but not with soldiers. Here, the fighters are America's biggest companies. Think of names you know: Costco, Revlon, and Ray-Ban. These powerful companies are now starting a huge legal war against the President of the United States. This is a fight unlike any other seen before. It is an unprecedented step. This chapter shows the core conflict. It is a massive rebellion by corporations. They are challenging the president's power over trade. They question the very limits of what the president can decide about buying and selling goods with other countries. The stakes are extraordinarily high. This is true not only for these companies and their profits, but also for the U.S. Constitution itself. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land, defining how power is shared. The story will paint a clear picture. The future of the nation's commerce hangs in the balance. This means all the business activities of the country. Everything depends on this one huge legal battle. It pits mighty corporate giants directly against the White House. Billions of dollars and core legal principles are at risk. These companies are usually very careful. They avoid big risks and open conflicts with the government. Yet they are now all taking legal action. They are declaring open war on the administration. What single powerful event could force so many powerful, risk-averse companies to do this? Why did they all decide to fight at the exact same time? 2. The new rules. The big legal fight started because of President Trump's new rules. He called them Liberation Day tariffs. These tariffs began in April 2025 and put new taxes on almost everything brought into the United States from other countries. To make these new taxes, the administration used an old law from 1977. It was called the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA. This law was for special emergencies to protect the country, but no president had ever used it before to place such large taxes on imported goods. This was a completely new way to use the law. These tariffs cost American companies a lot of money. For example, General Motors lost $1.1 billion in just 3 months because of these taxes. They thought they would lose $4 to $5 billion for the whole year 2025. Another company, John Deere, expected to lose $600 million. Many other companies also faced billions of dollars in unexpected costs. This huge money problem created a new worry. There was a government deadline of December 15th. This date was very important, like a clock ticking fast. What this date truly meant and why it was a point of no return for companies was not yet fully clear. With billions disappearing from their money, companies were very worried. But the reason they all went to court in late November was not just the high cost. It was a scary thought. If they waited too long, they might never get their money back, even if they won their case. 3. A race against time. The urgent date of December 15th was very important for many companies. It was a special deadline called liquidation. This is a key step where the government, specifically U.S. Customs and Border Protection, finishes its review of tariff payments on imported goods. It means the government has made the final decision on those specific payments. Once a payment is liquidated, U.S. Customs law says it becomes very hard for a company to challenge it. It's almost impossible to ask for that money back later. This process usually happens about 314 days after goods arrive in the United States. So, for goods imported in February 2025, when President Trump's new tariffs began, this crucial deadline fell in mid-December. Companies quickly understood they were in a race against time. They knew the Supreme Court was looking at the tariff laws and might soon say they were illegal. But companies could not simply wait for the court's decision. If their tariff payments were finalized by December 15th without them taking legal action, they would lose their chance to get a refund forever. Even if the Supreme Court later ruled that the tariffs were wrong, any company that did not file a lawsuit before the liquidation date might never see their money again. They had to sue before their payments became final. This was the only way to keep their right to reclaim potentially billions of dollars. Costco, one of America's largest retail companies, felt this pressure greatly. They tried to get more time, asking U.S. Customs and Border Protection to extend the December 15th liquidation deadline. But their request was denied. This forced Costco to file its landmark lawsuit on November 28th. The company faced a difficult choice: sue now or risk losing billions. This chapter of the legal battle was not just about legal rules. It was a frantic, high-stakes dash to protect immense sums of money. Companies had good reasons to think they would win. Lower courts had already sided with them. For example, in May and August of 2025, federal courts had ruled that the tariffs might be illegal. So, if these courts agreed with the businesses, why were companies still forced to pay these tariffs, causing this urgent rush to the courthouse? 4. The highest court. On November 5, 2025, the Supreme Court of the United States heard a very important case. 9 judges listened as lawyers argued about President Donald Trump's tariffs. The main question for them was clear. Does the president have the power to put taxes on imported goods, or can only Congress do that? This was a big question about how power is shared in the government. The president had used a law called the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEP, to put these taxes in place. This law was made in 1977 for urgent situations, like stopping other countries from doing bad things. But no president before Donald Trump had used it to set tariffs on so many goods. Lawyers against the tariffs argued that Congress never meant for this law to give the president such wide power over trade. Many of the judges asked hard questions, showing they were unsure about the government's arguments. Justice Neil Gorsuch, for example, questioned if reading the old law in this new way made sense. It seemed like the president was using an emergency power much more broadly than Congress ever planned. There was a strange situation in the law. Lower courts had already decided that the tariffs were probably not legal. For example, the U.S. Court of International Trade and the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit had sided with the companies. They said the tariffs went beyond what the president was allowed to do under IEEP. However, a special legal step meant these decisions were put on hold. This allowed the tariffs to stay in effect, and companies still had to keep paying them. This legal paradox forced companies to rush to court. The Supreme Court's decision now holds huge power. Their ruling could change how power is shared between the president and Congress for a long time. The legal reasons for and against the tariffs are now clear. But who exactly are the companies fighting this legal battle? The list of businesses suing is much bigger and more surprising than people might think. 5. The fighters. The legal fight is not just about rules, it is about real businesses and their struggles. Nearly 100 companies are now suing the government. These companies come from many different parts of the American economy. It is not just one type of business that is hurt by the tariffs. Instead, the tariffs affect almost every part of American life. You know some of these companies already. Costco, a very big store, has joined the lawsuit. Kawasaki Motors, which makes vehicles and engines, is also part of the group. Ray-Ban, a popular brand for eyeglasses, and Del Monte Fresh Produce, a food company, are fighting too. Other well-known names include Revlon, a beauty brand, and Bumblebee Foods, which sells canned fish. Many more, like Toyota, Alcoa, a metal company, and Ferguson Enterprises, a plumbing supplier, are also suing. This wide range of companies shows how much the tariffs have touched businesses across the nation. These companies are facing real financial problems. For example, Costco gets about 1/3 of all its products from other countries. Almost half of these imports come from China, Mexico, and Canada. These are the countries that President Trump's tariffs target. So the tariffs add a lot of extra cost to Costco's business. This makes it hard for them to keep prices low for customers and still make a good profit. Toyota, a large car company, is another example of this economic pain. Toyota expects to lose $1.3 billion in only 2 months. This is because of the extra taxes on cars and car parts it imports. The entire American car industry believes that a 25% tariff on car imports can make a car cost anywhere from $4,000 to $12,000 more. This extra money would ultimately come from American buyers. The large number of different companies suing shows that this is a major business problem for the whole country. It is not just about politics, it is about how much things cost and how companies can stay open. The tariffs affect everyone, from the biggest stores to the businesses that make car parts and grow food. However, these giant companies were not the first to challenge the government. This big legal movement started with a few much smaller businesses. They risked everything to fight back when no one else would. 6. A small start. The fight against the new import taxes did not start with big companies like Costco. It began much smaller. A few brave businesses, sometimes called Davids against Goliath, were the first to challenge the government. They risked everything they had. 2 of these early fighters were companies that made educational toys, learning resources, and hand-to-mind. These companies bought many parts for their toys from other countries. The new import taxes meant a huge problem for them. In 2024, they paid only about $2 million in taxes. But in 2025, the new taxes could cost them a massive $100 million. This big increase threatened to wipe out their businesses entirely. It was an existential threat, meaning it could end their existence. Another early challenger was a small company that brought wine and spirits into the United States. Other small businesses also joined the fight. These were not well-known brands or large corporations with many lawyers. They were small entrepreneurs who faced very real danger to their livelihoods and families. The new taxes made it hard for them to keep their prices low enough to compete. For example, one company that made plastic pipes bought most of its materials from Asia. If their costs went up too much, their Canadian customers would buy from cheaper local competitors, taking away their business. These small businesses took a huge step. They went to court to say the new taxes were not legal. Their courage paid off early. In May 2025, a court ruled that the government had used its power incorrectly. The court agreed with these 5 small businesses and 12 states that the taxes went beyond what the president was allowed to do. Soon after, another federal court made a similar decision, granting help to the 2 toy companies. Later that year, a higher appeals court confirmed these rulings. They said clearly that the president did not have the power to impose these kinds of taxes without clear approval from Congress. These early victories by small businesses were very important. They showed that the government's actions might be unlawful. This gave courage and a legal path to the much bigger companies that sued later. Even though the taxes still had to be paid while the legal process continued, these small businesses had started a big wave. They began a legal challenge that would eventually reach the country's highest court, showing that even small voices can start a powerful movement. These companies, big and small, were fighting for their survival, but the economic damage was already spreading beyond their balance sheets and heading straight for the wallets of everyday Americans. 7. The money problem. The legal fight in Washington might have seemed far away, but its effects touched every American home. Companies were paying billions of dollars in new taxes, called tariffs, on goods imported from other countries. These companies could not afford to simply lose all that money, so they made a difficult choice. Many businesses began to pass these extra costs on to their customers. This meant that the price of everyday items started to increase. Big companies like Procter & Gamble, which makes many common household products, announced that some of their items would cost more. For example, things like Dawn dish soap, Gillette shaving cream, and Charmin toilet paper would see higher prices. Nike, famous for its shoes and sportswear, also said it would raise prices because of the tariffs. Even large stores like Walmart and Home Depot indicated that they would need to charge more for groceries, clothes, and other goods. These billions of dollars in tariffs paid by companies were not just abstract numbers. They became a direct extra cost that every family felt when they went shopping. For consumers, especially those with less money, these price increases made life harder. The tariffs also caused wider problems for the broader economy. Companies became unsure about the future. This lack of certainty made them pull back on their plans. Many businesses cut back on hiring new employees, meaning fewer job opportunities for people. They also stopped making new investments, such as building new factories or buying new equipment. This financial strain and policy uncertainty slowed down economic growth. It was a clear ripple effect, where taxes on imported goods created financial pressure for companies, which then led to higher prices for consumers and fewer chances for jobs and growth across the nation. With the economy facing these challenges and the legal battle heating up, everything now depended on one crucial and imminent decision. The Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, was about to announce its ruling. This decision would determine the fate of billions of dollars. It would also decide a very important question about who has the power to set trade rules, the president or Congress. The final outcome was not certain, and the entire country waited to hear. 8. What happens next? The story now comes to a crucial point. The highest court, the Supreme Court, will soon make its decision. This one choice will change many things for companies, the government, and all Americans. President Donald Trump's tariffs have caused a big legal fight. Now everyone waits to see what happens next. There are two main paths the future can take. First, imagine the Supreme Court decides that the tariffs are against the law. This would mean that President Donald Trump did not have the power to put these taxes on imported goods. If this happens, a huge rush for money will begin. Companies like Costco, Revlon, and Kawasaki Motors, who filed lawsuits before the December 15th deadline, would want their billions of dollars back. U.S. Customs and Border Protection collected nearly $90 billion in tariffs by late September 2025. Companies that sued at the right time would have a chance to get their money back. This would be a big victory for them and a sign that Congress, not the President, controls trade taxes. Second, consider if the Supreme Court says the tariffs are lawful. This outcome would mean that President Donald Trump did have the power to use the 1977 IEEPA law in this new way. If the court upholds the tariffs, it will greatly increase the power of the president. Future presidents could use this same emergency law for many other things, even if Congress usually handles them. The economic costs we talked about, like higher prices for everyday items, would likely continue. Companies would keep paying billions, and these costs would keep going to consumers. This decision would shape American trade policy for many years. This legal battle shows how strong big companies can be when they work together. It also shows that the power of Congress, which makes laws, might be getting weaker compared to the president. The whole case is about a very important idea in America: how power is split between different parts of the government. The Supreme Court's choice will tell us where this power truly lies. This one decision will decide how much power a president has over trade and the economy for decades to come. It will affect everyone, from the largest company to the smallest family. What do you think is the biggest lesson we can learn from this story?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.